years ago, I met a girl at a bar that I worked at, and we ended up going back to her place one night, and we're in her bedroom, and she's getting comfortable, and I was sitting next to her door, and I heard somebody knock, and I'm waiting for her to answer it, and she didn't. And I said to her, "Are you gonna get that?" And she turned and looked at me and she said, "Oh, that's just the ghost in the house, so don't worry about that." So I was like, and she started telling me about stories how the kitchen gets pretty noisy in that place with the doors slamming and the cupboards. And at one point we were kissing and making out on her bed and that, and I can hear a whisper in a sneaky kind of voice saying, and I was kissing her and looking at her, and I kept on hearing it, and I'm looking at her, I don't see her lips moving. So that was kind of freaky. Needless to say, I did not sleep there that night.
So my fiance was working at Wilstead Manor, which is a really old mansion here in Windsor. It was probably built in like the early 1800s maybe. And apparently, obviously I didn't see it with my own eyes, but I've heard this story multiple times. He was in the basement, he had to take the really old elevator downstairs. So because it's a really old elevator, to keep the elevator open, he had to put a chair there so that he wouldn't get locked in the basement. He could only take the elevator down, there was no stairs, so that was his only way back up. So he was putting some stuff away and he looked over because he heard a noise and the chair was not leaving the elevator door open anymore. So he was like, "Oh, that's weird." So then the door shut and now he was kind of like locked down there basically. He had to go get the elevator again, which it is really creepy because it's such an old mansion. So he was like, "Okay, I want to get out of here." As he goes to get the elevator, he's pushing on the button so that it opens again. He starts hearing sheets moving. So there was about, he says, 8 or 9 tables in the basement that they would use for weddings and whatnot. And there are sheets covering it so they don't get dirty. And as he was turning his head, he saw the sheets on the corner of his eye and they just fell right to the ground. So that was every single sheet. So there was 8 different sheets apparently. So it's not like it just happened to one table, it happened to all of them. So at this point he's locked down there and that just happened. So he's really scared. So he pushes on the elevator as fast as he can so he can get there and get upstairs. And when he got upstairs, he told everyone that he worked with the story, and they all told him the stories that they have experienced that were really haunting and really scary.
Alright, I got this story here I'm gonna tell you about. It goes way back. Way back. Right after my dad passed. I was in the basement where he used to live. And he used to sit in this rocking chair. Many hours rocking. And then, after his passing, little dog we had happened to cross paths the rocking chair. And then all of a sudden, he turned, the little doggy that is, and looked back at the chair and started to bark at it. And at that moment, it started rocking back and forth. And I looked at the dog and I said, "What are you doing? Get away from there." And then it stopped. No idea what happened, or was that him? But it made me wonder.
So the story I have, years ago, I had an old friend's house. Were you there, Sabrina?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. And one day, this is in the afternoon even, we were all upstairs, and there's a basement to this house, and we hear this whack, bang, like steel hitting something against the wall. We were all startled, so we came from downstairs, so we went downstairs. Stairs goes down, then there's a wall on the right side. You go left to the open area of the basement. There was a wrench right on the floor, close to the stairs. And that's what made the noise, because it's a pretty heavy object. So I went down there, seen that. I look over, because I know there's a toolbox all the way across the other side of the basement. This wrench was in the toolbox, and no one was in the basement. So something threw that thing from one end of the basement all the way to the other end, really hard. So yeah, I think that was a creepy situation because that house is old. I don't know if she did say that there was haunting
Yeah,
experience.
she always said that, yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty crazy.
I have a haunted house story in my friend's house that was also haunted, and she was kind of a pathological liar, so we really didn't always believe her. But when I experienced firsthand what happened, I was understanding of what was going on. So it was a rental, and she had the basement, and she claimed there was this ghost in there that was always toying with her. And you know, recently I threw a button at her on her dressers. I whipped a button. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like walking around her dresser, and I'm like trying to get like the ghost to like respond to me. Another thing was that the phone upstairs would always like ring randomly. So when we started talking about it, like any of the hauntings, the more attention you give it, the more it has reactions. So when I did that, the phone rang upstairs, and it was a very distinctive like like one of those ringtones, and it was just like taunting me. Like when I would go like look, it would stop. Like it was wild. And so later on, like that day, we were on the computer, and like the monitor was acting up, and then we would hear like knocking outside on like the windows around the property. So the more we were giving it attention, the more it was responding. And like that's why I would never want to just like move into any house, because you never know if there's like something attached to it.
Okay, so my story starts, I was basically 18 years old, and I was invited to a prom. So we did everything with, prior to that, right? Joy riding, having a little bit of fun, this and that, right? So we went back to the house, beautiful place, swimming pool, the whole nine. We're there, we're having a great time, we're 18, right? So basically someone pulls out the Ouija board. So we're like, the Ouija board, I'm like, I don't really believe the Ouija board, I don't really believe anything like that, right? Because from what I've always understood, okay, people can move around, different things. I heard different stories, right? Mm-hmm. So I was reluctant. I said, what the hell, we'll try. We'll play, right? So basically we were sitting there, and we had our fingers on it, and I was sure that they were screwing around, right? So as we were trying, I started noticing that it was moving around quick, and I'm thinking, how can they move it that easy with their hands, and there's no issue, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'm looking, and I'm trying to weigh it out, and before I know it's actually moving itself, right? So for fun, I'm just asking the questions. I'm like, okay, are you a girl, right? Like the spirit, right? How old are you? I started asking different questions. What happened to you? How'd you die, right? Mm. So lo and behold, we found out she died in a fire, right? Early 1900s. Wow. So we start going through it and everything else, and then a few things she was saying, we were wondering because it was starting to move around a bit. And then we asked, are you lying? And then it went to no. And then it started going in circles around again, like angry. And I said, I think this is bullshit. I don't believe this. This isn't really happening. Someone's pushing this around, right? And it started getting more mad. It started going faster, right? So then I'm thinking, this is kind of weird. Like this is just, I don't want to be involved in this, right? So before I know it, we're sitting there and we're playing, and after a while we're asked different questions of different things, and different spirits were coming in, and we really didn't know who was who, because they're giving names, but who is that? Is it a lie? Is it a good spirit? Is it a bad spirit? Whatever, right? And until we actually said, give us a sign. If you're real, give us a sign, the lights, something, just do something, right? The lights went off, we couldn't turn the lights back on.
Ooh. Oh,
swim time.
Yeah, bring a blanket.
Ah!